You're already being used. And the reason it feels normal is because you were trained to call it virtue. You were taught that being open, cooperative, honest, and emotionally available makes you intelligent and moral. It doesn't. It makes you legible. And what is legible can be managed. The people around you don't need to be malicious to benefit from you. They only need to recognize that you explain yourself, that you justify your boundaries, that you hesitate before refusing. Once that pattern is visible, the extraction begins quietly. You don't lose power all at once. You lose it in small concessions that feel reasonable. You speak when silence will protect you. You clarify when ambiguity will restrain others. You reveal intention before position. And every time you do, you make someone else's decision easier while making your own weaker. They don't confront you. They don't attack you. They simply adjust. They push a little further. They wait a little longer. They demand a little more. And you comply because nothing feels wrong enough to resist. What you call being fair is often just being accessible. What you call being transparent is often just being predictable. You think you are participating as an equal, but you are being evaluated as a resource. Your words are measured. Your reactions are timed. Your limits are tested. And because you believe you're acting correctly, you never notice that the game was decided before you spoke. You mistake politeness for safety and clarity for strength. Machiavelli understood this pattern long before you were born. He didn't warn you about evil people. He warned you about readable people, people who announce themselves, people who believe that good intentions protect them. By the time you realize you're being used, the roles are already set. And the most dangerous part is not that others benefit from you. It's that you help them learn how. You reveal your intentions before you secure leverage. The moment you say what you want, you give away the only advantage you had: uncertainty. You think clarity makes you honest. It doesn't. It makes you exposed. When people know your direction, they don't align with you. They position themselves against or around you. They calculate how your goal affects their interests, and they act accordingly. You announce intention while standing unprotected, assuming goodwill will slow others down. It never does. It accelerates them. By speaking early, you remove friction for everyone except yourself. Revealing intention invites management. The room stops listening to you and starts evaluating plan. Opinions appear. Delays appear. Concerns appear. Not because people want to help, but because your transparency gave them permission to intervene. You don't notice it as resistance because it arrives disguised as advice, collaboration, or caution. But every suggestion shifts control away from you. You become accountable to expectations you didn't need to accept. You are now defending direction instead of advancing it. Intentions exposed too early also lock you in place. Once you say what you will do, others hold you to it. Any adjustment becomes weakness. Any silence becomes suspicion. You lose flexibility because your words create a contract you never needed to sign. Machiavelli understood that freedom of movement is power. You gave that freedom away voluntarily, thinking sincerity was strength. It wasn't. It was premature commitment in a hostile environment. The most damaging part is this: people learn how to stop you without confronting you. They don't argue. They stall. They redirect resources. They wait for you to exhaust yourself justifying a future that hasn't happened yet. And you keep talking because you believe explanation will protect momentum. It won't. Leverage comes first. Intention comes last. If you reverse that order, you don't get opposed, you get managed. You talk to be understood instead of waiting to be respected. You speak because you want alignment. You explain because you want clarity. You justify because you want fairness. But none of that creates respect. It creates familiarity. And familiarity lowers your position. When you rush to be understood, you reveal that other people's perception matters more to you than your standing. You give them access to your reasoning, your doubts, your motivations. That access does not make them empathic. It makes them comfortable managing you. Respect does not come from clarity. It comes from distance, restraint, and consequence. By talking too much, you close that distance yourself. Every explanation weakens authority. The more you clarify, the more others feel entitled to evaluate, critique, and negotiate your position. You turn decisions into discussions. You turn boundaries into debates. You turn direction into something that requires consensus. And once consensus is expected, control is gone. People don't respect what needs to be defended verbally. They respect what stands without justification. Machiavelli understood that authority is assumed, not argued. When you argue for your position, you place yourself beneath the judgment of the listener. You become a participant, not a force. Talking to be understood also exposes your emotional investment. People hear not just your words, but your need behind them. They sense that you want approval, agreement, or validation. That need becomes leverage. They can withhold understanding to extract more explanation. They can misinterpret you to force clarification. They can delay a response to increase your anxiety. Silence on their part makes you talk more. Silence on your part would have made them adjust. But you chose comfort over power, and power never rewards that choice. Waiting to be respected requires tolerance for misunderstanding. It means allowing others to sit with uncertainty instead of rescuing them with clarity. It means letting your actions define you rather than your explanations. Most people cannot tolerate that tension. They rush to fill the gap because silence feels like loss of control. Machiavelli knew better. He knew that respect grows where words are scarce and decisions are final. When you stop talking to be understood, people stop trying to interpret you. They start reacting to you, and that shift changes the entire balance. You confuse transparency with strength. You believe openness signals confidence. You think revealing your thoughts, motives, and doubts proves you have nothing to hide. It doesn't. It proves you don't understand exposure. Transparency removes friction for everyone except you. When you show everything, others don't admire you. They map you. They learn what you tolerate, what pressures you, and where you hesitate. Strength is not being visible. Strength is being unreadable. Machiavelli understood that what is fully seen is easily handled. Transparency doesn't elevate you. It makes you manageable. Transparency invites intrusion. The more you share, the more others feel entitled to participate in your decisions. They comment, advise, question, and redirect because you open the door. You think you're being collaborative. In reality, you're dissolving hierarchy. You turn private judgment into public process. Once that happens, your position depends on approval rather than authority. People stop adjusting to you and start adjusting you. The moment your internal reasoning becomes public property, your autonomy is already compromised. You also underestimate how transparency freezes you. Once you state your values, intentions, and emotions openly, others hold you hostage to consistency. Any change is framed as hypocrisy. Any silence is framed as avoidance. Any recalibration becomes suspect. You lose the ability to adapt quietly. Machiavelli warned that survival requires movement, not moral exhibition. Transparency traps you in yesterday's version of yourself, while others evolve without explanation. They keep their flexibility. You keep defending your past statements. The most dangerous illusion is believing transparency earns trust. It doesn't. It earns predictability. And predictability is what control feeds on. When people know how you think, they know how to steer you. When they know your values, they know how to shame you. When they know your fears, they know how to rush you. Strength is not being seen. It's deciding when and if you are seen. The moment you stop confusing transparency with power, you realize why those who reveal the least often control the most. You act early to feel honest, not to stay in control. You move quickly because delay makes you uncomfortable. You act before conditions are stable because waiting feels deceptive. You tell yourself that speed equals integrity, that immediate action proves courage. It doesn't. It proves impatience. Acting early is not strength. It is relief-seeking. You are trying to silence internal pressure, not secure external advantage. Machiavelli understood that timing is power. Whoever moves first without protection exposes themselves to those who move later with preparation. You act to clear your conscience while others wait to shape the field. Early action gives others a gift, reaction time. Once you move, they do not have to guess. They observe, adapt, and respond from safety. You reveal commitment before resistance is neutralized. You spend energy advancing while others spend energy adjusting against you. And because you move first, you are now invested. You must continue. You must justify. You must offend. The people watching do not need to stop you directly. They only need to slow you, complicate you, or drain you. Your honesty locked you into motion before control was secured. Acting early also exposes motivation. People see what you care about, what you're trying to prove, and what outcome you're chasing. That information becomes leverage. They question your pace. They frame your decisiveness as recklessness. They introduce reasonable concerns that force you to explain yourself. You think you're being transparent. In reality, you're surrendering initiative. Machiavelli warned that the one who acts under observation loses freedom. The one who waits controls narrative, tempo, and consequence. Control requires tolerance for delay. It requires letting opportunities mature and threats reveal themselves. Most people cannot do this. They act to feel clean, not to stay dominant. They move to escape doubt, not to secure position. And once they act, they are no longer free. They are committed in public, predictable in private, and manageable by anyone patient enough to wait. Acting early feels honest. Acting late feels strategic. Only one of those survives pressure. You assume fairness where self-interest dominates. You enter situations believing there is a shared standard of reason, balance, and good faith. You think people will limit themselves because something is fair. They won't. Fairness is not a governing force. It is a narrative people use when it benefits them. Self-interest is the constant. Machiavelli understood this clearly. People restrain themselves only when restraint protects their advantage. When you assume fairness, you misread the environment. You expect reciprocity where calculation rules. You reveal trust where caution is required. And by doing so, you position yourself as the only participant playing by rules no one else agreed to follow. Assuming fairness makes you slow to recognize exploitation. You interpret pressure as misunderstanding. You interpret imbalance as temporary. You interpret manipulation as miscommunication. This delay is costly. While you're giving others the benefit of the doubt, they are measuring how much they can extract. They are not asking whether their actions are fair. They are asking whether there will be consequences. When there are none, behavior escalates. Self-interest does not announce itself. It advances quietly until it meets resistance. Your belief in fairness prevents you from becoming that resistance. This assumption also weakens your negotiations. You reveal information expecting honesty in return. You make concessions expecting compromise. You show patience expecting respect. Instead, you teach others your thresholds. They learn how much you will tolerate before pushing back. They learn that appealing to reason slows you down. They learn that you will wait for balance while they move for advantage. Machiavelli warned that those who rely on fairness invite domination by those who rely on outcome. You are not betrayed by unfair people. You are outpaced by realistic ones. The most damaging part is psychological. When fairness fails you, you feel wronged instead of outplayed. You become emotional instead of strategic. You demand justice instead of adjusting position. That reaction further weakens you. The world does not correct imbalance out of sympathy. It corrects it only when forced. Assuming fairness delays force. It delays consequence. And delay always favors the one acting from self-interest. Until you stop expecting people to limit themselves for moral reasons, you will continue losing ground to those who never made that mistake. You believe being reasonable protects you. You think moderation keeps you safe. You assume that if you stay calm, cooperative, and rational, others will respond in kind. They won't. Reasonableness is not protection. It is exposure. It signals that you prefer agreement over dominance and stability over leverage. Machiavelli understood that the reasonable person is easy to manage because they self-regulate. They compromise before pressure is applied. They soften positions before resistance appears. They give ground to avoid escalation. And once others see that you fear tension more than loss, they stop respecting your limits entirely. Being reasonable invites negotiation where none is required. You explain your stance, expecting logic to settle the matter. Instead, you open the door to counterarguments, delays, and reframing. The discussion shifts from outcome to process. You are no longer deciding. You are participating. Others sense this immediately. They push further because they know you will listen. They escalate demands because you will consider them. You become trapped in dialogue while they advance position. Machiavelli warned that excessive reason dissolves authority. Power is not proven through persuasion. It is maintained through finality. The moment everything becomes debatable, nothing belongs to you. Reasonableness also exposes your thresholds. People learn how far they can go before you resist. They test patience, tone, and timing because you reward escalation with engagement. Each time you respond calmly to disrespect, you teach others that calmness replaces consequence. They do not see strength, they see containment. And containment is something to push against. The reasonable person believes restraint earns respect. In reality, restraint without enforcement invites intrusion. You are not seen as fair. You are seen as adjustable. The most dangerous illusion is believing that reason will stop those driven by advantage. It never has. Self-interest does not yield to logic. It yields to cost. When you rely on reason as defense, you disarm yourself. You remove urgency. You delay consequence. And delay favors the one willing to be unreasonable. Machiavelli's insight was blunt. Those who depend on being reasonable are governed by those who are not. If your protection relies on others behaving well, you have no protection at all. You mistake silence for weakness, so others don't. You were taught that silence signals uncertainty, passivity, or lack of confidence, so you rush to fill it. You explain. You clarify. You respond quickly to avoid appearing unsure. In doing so, you expose yourself. Silence is not absence. It is control. Machiavelli understood that the one who speaks first gives away position. When you treat silence as weakness, you surrender it prematurely. Others recognize its value immediately. They wait while you talk. They observe while you justify. They gather information while you reveal it. Your discomfort with silence becomes their advantage. Silence shifts pressure outward. When you speak, you relieve tension for everyone else. When you stay silent, tension accumulates in a room, and tension forces movement. People begin to explain themselves. They fill gaps with assumptions. They reveal motives without being asked. Silence makes others uncomfortable because it denies them feedback. They cannot read you. They cannot predict you. That uncertainty forces restraint. Machiavelli valued this imbalance. The silent party controls tempo, framing, and escalation. The talkative party loses all three. You think silence makes you look small. In reality, it makes you unreadable, and unreadable people are treated carefully. When you fear silence, you also fear judgment. You assume that if you don't speak, others will think poorly of you. That fear drives overcommunication. You defend decisions that did not require defense. You answer questions that were not demands. You volunteer information that weakens your position. Others learn that silence pressures you, so they use it deliberately. They delay responses. They withhold clarity. They let you stew until you speak. Meanwhile, they remain composed because silence does not threaten them. You misread the dynamic and keep losing ground. Those who understand silence do not use it emotionally. They use it structurally. They speak only when words change outcomes. They let time do the work explanations cannot. They allow others to expose impatience, entitlement, or insecurity. Silence becomes a filter. Those who respect it self-regulate. Those who don't disqualify themselves. Machiavelli's lesson is direct. The person who fears silence is governed by reaction. The person who uses silence governs the exchange. You mistake silence for weakness because you were trained to. Others don't, and that is why they wait while you speak and move while you hesitate. You were not defeated by force. You were positioned, measured, and adjusted, while believing you were being fair, reasonable, and honest. That is how power works when it doesn't announce itself. Nothing was taken aggressively. It was handed over through timing, explanation, and the need to be seen as good. Machiavelli didn't warn you about villains. He warned you about patterns. And once you see the pattern, you realize this was never about morality. It was about control. If this reached you, comment, "I see it now, so I know who understood," without needing reassurance. Subscribe to Dark Psychology Blueprint. Turn on notifications and stay close. The next breakdown doesn't teach you how to win. It shows you why most people never notice they already lost.